Hello and welcome back to the Explanation Pro. Today I'll recap a war movie called Black Book, from 2006. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie is set in Israel in 1956. There, we find a school teacher called Rachel. She is reuniting with an old friend Rachel met during The Hague during World War II. The guy's name is Ronnie. After Ronnie leaves, Rachel recalls her past, and how she survived the very last days of World War II. We go back to 1944. There, we see Rachel seeking refuge from the Nazis on a farm in the Dutch countryside. The farmers accept her, but with one sole condition: they demand that she learns Bible verses. Tragedy strikes when a disabled Allied bomber inadvertently destroys the farmhouse, claiming the lives of everyone present, except Rachel's. In a stroke of fortune, Rob, a young man from a neighboring farm, steps in to help her, taking Rachel to his family's greenhouse. Meanwhile, Van Gain, a police officer, arrives to deliver the horrendous news. The Nazis have discovered Rachel's presence in the area and were determined to track the woman down. Sensing the imminent danger, Van Gain offers his assistance to Rachel and Rob, planning an escape to the liberated southern part of Holland, controlled by the Allies. Before embarking on their perilous journey, Rachel sought the counsel of her father's lawyer, Small. He bestowed upon her a substantial sum of money and precious jewels, enough to sustain her for a year. However, he warned her to exercise caution and not place blind trust in others. Guided by Van Gain, Rachel and Rob arrived at a secretive dock where fellow Jews awaited their departure. Amidst the joyous reunion with her parents and a brother recovering from an emergency appendectomy, Rachel's hopes were tempered by the absence of Van Gain, who opted not to join them on the boat voyage. Tragically, their journey took a horrifying turn as a Nazi patrol boat ambushed their vessel that very evening. Without warning, the Nazis unleashed a barrage of gunfire, resulting in a gruesome massacre. Miraculously, Rachel was the sole survivor, witnessing the heart-wrenching sight of the Nazis pillaging the lifeless bodies before being carried away by the current of the river. Rachel, the protagonist, was discovered by brave resistance fighters who were dedicated to thwarting the Nazis. To ensure her safe passage, they resorted to a daring plan, disguising her as a victim of typhoid and concealing her within a carefully prepared coffin, cleverly equipped with discreet air holes. Through this ruse, Rachel was smuggled into The Hague. Once in The Hague, Rachel found herself under the care of Gerben Kuipers, another committed member of the resistance. He ran a soup kitchen where Rachel sought refuge, and it was there that she assumed a new identity: Ellis de Vries. As time went on, Ellis became an integral part of the Resistance's operations, specifically involved in their mission to clandestinely bring British arms and provisions into the region. Leading this dangerous smuggling endeavor was Hans Ackermans, an accomplished marksman. To avoid arousing suspicion and elude the prying eyes of the Nazis, Ellis and Hans were to pose as a married couple during their train journey. Their luggage, seemingly innocuous, actually concealed a cache of weaponry. However, their carefully laid plans took an unexpected turn when it became apparent that the Nazi soldiers on the train had every intention of thoroughly searching all baggage, including theirs. With a sense of urgency, Ellis knew they needed an alternative strategy. Seizing the moment, she bravely took charge of the situation, gathering the bags and entering a private compartment occupied by SD Colonel Munze, a high-ranking Nazi official. Astonishingly, the Nazis refrained from inspecting Munze's compartment, providing a temporary reprieve. Amidst this tension-filled encounter, a palpable attraction developed between Ellis and Munze, blurring the lines of their respective roles. Fascinated by each other, they found themselves drawn to the forbidden connection. An offer to visit Munze at his office was extended to Ellis, a proposition she tentatively accepted. Unbeknownst to her, this budding relationship stirred feelings of jealousy within Hans, adding a new layer of complexity to an already precarious situation. In a fateful turn of events, a truck transporting the British guns met with a disastrous accident right in front of the soup kitchen. To their dismay, Kuiper's son, Tim, who happened to be driving the truck, was promptly apprehended by the Gestapo. Sensing imminent danger, the others involved in the resistance operation sought refuge by going into hiding. Determined to secure Tim's release, Ellis took it upon herself to arrange a meeting with Munze, hoping that she could somehow persuade him to intervene. Aware of Munze's passion for stamp collecting, she cleverly presented him with a selection of rare Dutch stamps, using this opportunity to gain access to him. In a surprising turn of events, Munze extended an invitation for Ellis to attend a Nazi party. At the event, Ellis found herself face to face with SS Commandant Gunter Franken, a familiar figure responsible for leading the deadly ambush on the refugee boat. Despite her revulsion at the sight of him, Ellis summoned the strength to perform at the party. Later that evening, she and Munsa retreated to his suite, where their desire for each other took hold. However, Munsa, with his perceptiveness, deduced Ellis's true identity as a Jewish woman due to her dyed blonde hair. Despite this revelation, he had already fallen deeply in love with her. Ellis, grappling with conflicting emotions, accepted a position in Munsa's office and commenced her work the following day. It was there that she encountered Ronnie, Franken's secretary and intimate partner. In a surprising turn of events, Franken handed them a report detailing Tim's confession, signaling his impending execution. However, Munsa, swayed by his affection for Ellis, steadfastly refused to sign the execution order, defying the expectations of his Nazi counterparts. Ellis found herself face to face with Small at the heart of Nazi headquarters. It was there that she made a startling discovery. Small and Munsa had negotiated a precarious ceasefire agreement. The terms were clear: if the resistance ceased their attacks on the Nazis would refrain from unleashing violent reprisals upon Dutch civilians. This revelation caused a deep rift within the resistance ranks. However, everything changed when Ellis cunningly placed a hidden microphone in Franken's office. The captured conversations exposed a horrifying truth: Franken and Van Gane had formed an unholy alliance, orchestrating the killing and robbery of Jews desperately seeking refuge in Allied territory. Within these intercepted discussions, Van Gane questioned Franken about the source of his information regarding the whereabouts of hidden Jews, but Franken evasively refused to provide an answer. The shocking revelations sparked a fierce controversy among the resistance fighters. Ellis, consumed by a burning desire for vengeance against those responsible for her family's plight, sought to take action. However, Kuipers, driven by the fear of his son's life hanging in the balance, vehemently opposed any action that could jeopardize the fragile truce. In a moment tainted by prejudice, he questioned whether Jewish lives held more value than Dutch lives. Behind Kuiper's back, Hans and a group of like-minded individuals secretly conspired to apprehend Van Gane, creating a facade of him going into hiding to protect himself. Their plan involved drugging Van Gane with chloroform, but their efforts were thwarted when they discovered that the medicine had surpassed its expiration date. As Van Gane neared escape, the situation turned dire, and they were forced to take drastic measures, resulting in his untimely demise. His lifeless body was unceremoniously disposed of in the canal, the dark waters absorbing the weight of their actions. In the midst of this tumultuous night, Munsa, aware of Ellis's involvement in the resistance, boldly confronted her. The encounter served as a moment of reckoning, where the complexities of their intertwined fates collided, setting the stage for a confrontation that would test their loyalties and reshape their destinies. Small, resourceful as ever, managed to acquire the building plans for the Nazi headquarters through a friend at City Hall. The building, once a bank, became the stage for a daring plan to infiltrate during a grand celebration in honor of Hitler's birthday. Armed with critical information provided by Ellis, Munsa leveled an accusation against Franken, accusing him of unlawfully hoarding properties and valuables confiscated from Jews, an offense punishable by death. Yet, to everyone's surprise, a search of Franken's safe yielded no incriminating evidence. In a twisted turn of events, Franken retaliated, accusing Munsa of colluding with the resistance, terrorists in his eyes. Munsa's fate was sealed, and he was sentenced to death. Adding to the mounting tensions, Franken declared that 40 hostages would face execution in retaliation for the killing of Van Gane. The rescue mission took on a new level of complexity, with Ellis insisting that Munsa be among those liberated, driven by her love for him. That night, Ellis strategically left an open coal chute door for Hans and his companions to enter, then ventured off to fulfill her role as a singer at the party. The resistance members successfully infiltrated the building, freeing many prisoners. However, their success was short-lived as they were ambushed by Nazi soldiers, leaving only Hans and one other member of the resistance alive. Meanwhile, Franken, seizing the opportunity, brought Ellis to his office, exploiting the presence of the hidden microphone to fabricate a narrative that implicated Ellis as a collaborator against the resistance. Back in The Hague, following the German surrender and the end of World War II in Europe, Ellis and Munsa returned, seeking answers from Small, whom they suspected of betraying the resistance fighters and the Jews to Franken. Small vehemently denied any involvement and claimed to possess evidence that would expose the true culprit, which he intended to present to the Canadian military government overseeing the city. However, before he could fulfill his intention, Small and his wife fell victim to an unknown assailant. Munsa and Ellis found themselves trapped by the resistance fighters, but not before Ellis managed to retrieve Small's notebook containing vital information. As Franken attempted to escape by boat with the stolen Jewish valuables, Hans intervened and ended his life. Muntze, now in the custody of the Canadian Army, faced a grim fate as he was sentenced to death for his connections with communists in the resistance. Meanwhile, Ellis, considered a collaborator by her fellow countrymen, endured deplorable treatment among her fellow Dutch prisoners. Hans, now hailed as a hero of the resistance, confronted his compatriots, admonishing them for mirroring the despicable actions of their former Nazi oppressors. Taking Ellis to his office, Hans initially claimed to administer a sedative but instead injected her with a lethal dose of insulin. He revealed himself as the traitor within the resistance, convinced that killing Ellis was necessary to cover his tracks. However, unbeknownst to Hans, Ellis swiftly consumed a chocolate bar, countering the effects of the insulin and securing her escape, armed with Small's damning black book of evidence. Bringing the evidence to Kuipers, who stood by a nearby mass grave where his son's body was uncovered, they set out to find Hans. They discovered him on a country road, employing the same coffin method used to smuggle Rachel into the resistance, a grim reminder of their past. Though Hans offered to share some of the stolen wealth, Kuipers and Ellis sealed off his air supply, ensuring his suffocating demise. Along the banks of the river, they deliberated on what to do with the ill-gotten gains. In 1956, at Kibbutz Stein, established with the Jewish funds, Rachel and her family vanished behind the protective fences as armed Israeli soldiers arrived, standing guard against an unseen enemy,